It's Saturday the 29th of September. Now we're on quest 26. I think on some other documents I put quest 25. But it's actually quest 26. Now, for those of you who don't know what quests are, they're almost like a pilgrimage really. We're travelling backwards in time, we're living the history, and we're going back to all these perfect points in time where there were some very spiritual leads in different areas and different places. And so at the moment we found ourselves on the island of Ireland. And it's actually, I say, Saturday the 29th of September. We're leaving back tomorrow morning to go to the mainland, back to England. But we actually arrived here on Monday the 24th of September, so we had a few days here already. Now on the Sunday we had to stay on the Isle of Anglesey, which is anyone who hasn't been to the Isle of Anglesey, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, and we used the infamous Airbnb and that worked really well, and we stayed over there in a very modest but very pleasant place, which was lovely. We got on the Irish ferries, which I think is the best ferries to get on. There is a Stena line as well, but personal preference is to use Irish ferries, irishferries.com. So we got on the ferry the following morning, on Monday morning, well, late morning, early afternoon, and we then travelled across to Dublin, which was a really pleasant journey, nice and safe and nice and calm, absolutely fine. We arrived in Dublin sometime after about 5 o'clock. It's about 5:15 in the evening, so it's been a fairly long day already, I guess. Then from there we trunked our way up to Omeath in County Louth, where we've been staying at a place called Ballyonan, which has been quite pleasant as well. But the quest itself covered many points across. We've covered the entire, in 1 week we've covered, originally we set out to cover 10 locations. We've actually covered about 17 locations in a week, so we've certainly done more than what we originally anticipated. For those who don't know, we arrived on the Monday, as I say, into Loch Tarn, or if you read it, it could say Louth Tane, but it's Loch Tarn. We stayed here. Now on the Tuesday, that was our first adventure, I guess. We went to the Hill of Tara, which is, from a personal level, it's really important to me because checking my ancestry back through the wonderful DNAancestry.com, I travel back, my line travels all the way back to the High Kings of Ireland. So anyone that knows the history, all the High Kings of Ireland, all the important kings, because there was many kings in many lands, but the High Kings, the overruling kings, they were always crowned at the Hill of Tara. Now on the Hill of Tara there's a wonderful stone called the Stone of Destiny, and that's really worthwhile taking time to walk up there. You don't have to pay to go onto the Hill of Tara. There is a visitor centre, but it's closed from like mid-September right through to early March each year, so it is free just to walk up there. Wear a good jacket because it can get a bit blowy and cold, but up there you've got the wonderful what I call tombs. You've got the wonderful seat, and they've even marked where the king's seat would have been. And then you've got the Stone of Destiny, which comes up so many times in so many religions, and people say about the Tablet of Destiny, the Stone of Destiny, the Spear of Destiny. There's all these of Destiny bits, and what they are, they're markers in time. So they mark a point in time, and that's why they're there. And if we remove that object, that's, for example, if we remove the Stone of Destiny from the Hill of Tara, the marker would still be there if we look beyond the sort of physical realm. So whilst there is a physical object there, and it is a place of absolute spirituality, calmness, excellent for ramblers, so it's worthwhile going over and just touch the stones for a few seconds and see what you feel from that, because you should get, if nothing more, you should get just a bit of peace and a bit of grounding from there. So that's the Hill of Tara. We then went on to Cavan Cathedral, which is again quite important to me because Bernard Fordham, from one of my family lines, which is my one of my great grandfathers, was actually baptised at Cavan Cathedral, so that was quite interesting to see the cathedral itself. Really interesting from different points. We've got lots of photography on there. Following that, on the same Tuesday, we went to St Patrick's Church. Now that was pretty interesting. It was certainly a church that had more than its fair share of symbolism inside. So that pretty much covered the Tuesday. On the Wednesday we went to Newry Cathedral. Now it's spelt Newry, N-E-W-R-Y, but it's actually pronounced Newry. So we went to Newry Cathedral, and that's in Downpatrick in County Down. And again, that was a wonderful, wonderful cathedral. Really embracing, really enjoyed that. It's worthwhile going to see that. Again, from a point of the myth and legend, which some have heard of, is it's the land of the true knight, or the land of the last knight, as it were. No, it's not a film, it's actually a point in history. So it's all about how, if we look at the Templar trails, how they came across. They touched base in Newry, and they stayed there for a time, and they actually left something behind, but I don't know how many people actually know the myth and legend about that. But below Newry Cathedral is meant to be an object from the Knights Templar that is safeguarded and sealed in there, never to be revealed again. So, but it remains in situ there, so that's one of the myth and legends. It's worthwhile feeling. Now, when you're at Newry Cathedral, in a certain point of the cathedral, you could say it's just your mind playing tricks on you, but there is a certain level of energy that raises through, and you can then feel the energy from that particular sacred object, if that's what you believe in. After that we went on to the, ironically, the Titanic Quarter, which is obviously named after the builders of the Titanic from the Dublin aspect, from the Belfast accent, sorry. And we went to the Belfast Public Records Office in the Titanic Boulevard. And I must admit, for me, I found it quite confusing, like anyone would when they walk in, but the staff are really helpful, and they'll certainly help you out through different things to point you in the right direction to get the right documents that you require. Now, for me it was a little bit frustrating because I could only get one point from there, which was an absolutely brilliant point, and it certainly confirms and affirms a certain point of one of my trees. But for the Neville line, that goes back to Dublin, so therefore that will be in the Groney office, not in the Priory office. So when I return back to the mainland, I'll be spending some time to contact them via email and various things to get some detail. But the Belfast Public Records Office is very modern, very nice. It's fully facilitated with cafe and toilets and things, and definitely for the disabled as well. Lifts to different floors, absolutely wonderful. After that we went on to St Patrick's Church, and that pretty much covered the Wednesday really. On the Thursday was a pretty amazing point, I guess, because I've been there a few times before. My friend Janice hadn't been there before. I mean, most people have heard of the Giant's Causeway in the Bushmills district of Northern Ireland. Now, it's tied in very clearly with what used to be known as the Lord of the Isles. Now, the Lord of the Isles, again, goes back to the Neville line, it goes back to Mac Mildred, and then backdated even further. Mac Dolphin, Fitzmaldred, and so on and so forth. And we go back in time. So the Lord of the Isles is very much, we have to think in a slightly different context, because we look at the Isles and say, oh, there's the little islands, but rewind history quite significantly. The sea levels weren't where they are today, the land was a little bit higher, and so lands weren't so separated as they are in today's world. You know, you could, and if we go back thousands and thousands of years, we know that, you know, that England and Ireland were connected all as one big lump of land. You know, there was no separation of an Irish sea or waters really. So that cliche phrase that water will win, water always wins, it always will. There's nothing that can defeat water. So on one side, water gives you that wonderful part and aspect of life, the life giver. So, but on the other side, it's the life taker. So it very much comes into the Wolfbane aspect of Templarism, with the able to provide and able to take away, give life and take life. So, which is again what we look at when we look at the Alpha to Omega. I am the beginning and I am the end. A lot of people never really get a grasp as to what the Alpha to Omega mean. My understanding and research has always pointed me towards the Alpha is the birth of life, the Omega is the taking of life. So it all goes back to what we call the Wolfbane, the Trinity, but not in a Trinity as we know from certain levels of Christianity. This is a totally different world on that. And anyone with any interest in spiritual ancestry and history would very much benefit, I think, from reading the Colbrin. And the Colbrin is very, very intense and very in depth. And because we look at all these different religions and we look at them all and we say, well, okay, well, are Muslims right or wrong? Are Christians right or wrong? Are Catholics right or wrong? Protestants, Jews, shamans, who's right and who's wrong? Well, the fact is that everybody's right and everybody's wrong. But the point to hold on to is that there is an element of truth that trails through every single religion on the planet, through every point in time. There has to be an element of truth, because no one woke up this morning and said, I know what, I'm going to call this cup God, and we're now going to start a religion and worship the cup. And the cup's now going to be our religion moving forward. No one woke up and created that. There had to be a series of information that had de-escalated or escalated, whichever way you look at it, across time, across space and time, to say, well, this is true. So every single religion has a value of some sort. The problem remains is that the human species has nothing but jealousy and greed. And it will always have jealousy and greed. It's designed to have jealousy and greed. It's designed to be competitive, to get one over on its neighbour. Yet, you can say, well, hang on, religion doesn't teach us that. Religion says that we should love thy neighbour, we should protect them, but what a load of hogwash. Because it doesn't happen in reality. Yeah, the majority of people are so insular and so self-centred that deep down, they might help their neighbour, they might help a friend, they might do something, but deep down it's all about the me aspect. What's in it for them? So it would be lovely to say it's the death of religion. So the death of religion. An interesting concept, isn't it? That suddenly religion just ceases to exist. Because what really is religion? I often challenge that myself, because when we look at religion, we see all these different churches, we see all these different temples, we see synagogues, we see mosques, we see all these people that are pretty much worshipping the same God, which is wrong, because they were never meant to worship in the first place. So why are they worshipping? There should be a respect and acknowledgement, but I think the terminology of worship is very, very wrong, because that makes someone subservient. And yes, God is so much greater than a human being, but you would not worship an entity, a creature. You would respect that entity and creature. So therefore, and your creator. So I think worship is a very strong word to use, and it's used in very strong contexts that sadly in some religions, not all, it's used as a control mechanism, a way of saying, well, if you do it this way, God won't like that, and you've got to serve God, so therefore you should not do it. No, there is a thing called free will. And free will was designed to allow the human species to have thought, to have reason, to have purpose. So when we look at those 3 points of thought, reason and purpose, we think, well, I think so therefore I am. We know that. But if you therefore you think and therefore I am, you've had the thought process, you've had the reason, I am, and now you just need the purpose. And that's the part that most people are looking for in religions. They're looking for a purpose of their existence. Well, the fact remains that there's a lot of creatures on the planet that probably serve no purpose at all, but they have been valued and treasured to have a life. And so live it. Live it how you want. That classic phrase, and it harm none, do as ye will. Fine, then do it. No religion should be saying to any other person that you're right or you're wrong. No, any other, that should be just ruled out. what there should be is a council set up of all religions. So leaders of each religion should be coming into a council formation to share their experiences and values and be respected. Because the more we understand about other religions away from whichever religious path you follow, the quicker there will be peace on earth. Because there hasn't been peace on earth in all these centuries, we know that. So that is the only way to get some kind of significant development and evolution. That the leaders of each religion must really come together and form a council, or whatever you want to call it, but a league of religions, where they can meet on a common ground regularly and can determine the way forward for people as the representative of the people. That's the only way. And this is what brings me to the Giant's Causeway, because the Giant's Causeway acts as almost like a wall, a stepping stone really, and it's stepping stones into the ocean. Again, the Alpha and Omega, the water, the life giver and the life taker. So the myth and legends of our visit to Giant Causeway, which some people won't know, there's the story, the concise version is the story of the Irish giants and the Scottish giants. Now, the myth and legend goes that the certain species of humans, i.e. not just all humans, but because we know there's 7 types of humans on the planet, people, there's not just one type of human on the planet, and anyone with any sense can hopefully realise that. There's 7 types of human species on this planet today. So not everybody is the same. They have similar ideals, they have similar looks, but no different to a cat, to a tiger, to a lion. Yeah, they have similar looks, but they're not the same. And it's the same with humans as well. So we have different tribes. That's probably the best way of describing it. So here we have the Irish tribe, the Irish giant, and we have the Scottish giant. Now, the legend says that certain species of humans were turned into, or evolved into over time, into giants. And then on the other side, the gods, and they were proclaiming that there was more than one god, gods were made smaller and smaller and smaller until they turned into fairies. So therefore we have the giants and the fairies story. So we'll park the fairies aside for 1 second, excuse the pun, and we'll look at the giants. So the Scottish giant and the Irish giant were always against each other, yet they were only a few miles apart in the scale of things really. And basically what happened is that one person, have you got this for me? Oh, good. One person, I wouldn't want to say it all over again, guys. One person, or one giant, challenged the other giant to a duel to take over land. Well, that falls flat on its face straight away, doesn't it? Because whatever religion you follow, whatever religious path or faith you follow, or perhaps you don't follow anyone at all, there's that wonderful phrase is that no man shall own the land. Yet here we are proclaiming to own land wherever we go. And back to this legend, this myth and legend, is that the Irish giant challenges the Scottish giant to almost like a duel, a fight, to win the land, to get more land. So, the story goes is that the Irish giant created a massive great wall of all these tubular rocks that went all the way across to barricade himself in, to create a defence wall to stop the giant coming over. That's one storyline. The other storyline is that the Irish giant sneaked over to Scotland to have a look at the Scottish giant in secrecy, just spied on him a little. And he realised that the Scottish giant was so much bigger and so much greater than him that he thought, my lord, this is just wrong, I can't fight him. So he decided to play a very interesting game that worked in his favour. So he went back to Ireland, and the Scottish giant came over as planned to attack Ireland from Scotland, and came in, but little did the Scottish giant know is that the Irish giant had asked his wife to dress him in as a child and put him into a cot. So the story goes is that when the giant from Scotland came over and saw the size of the baby in the cot, the Scottish giant thought, my God, if this is the size of a child, how big's the giant? And with fear of that fact alone, or presumed fact, he went running back to Scotland never to return. So that's an interesting part there. So you've got the two giants, you've got fairies, you've got a baby. It all sounds quite familiar in most religious beliefs, doesn't it, when you look at different tales and stories that are told through different scriptures, really, about different pathways, as it were. So we have the Giant's Causeway for that reason. But I put it to you that the causeway is something probably much more simplistic than that story. That if we go back to where the oceans were not as high as they were and the lands were met, then the stones that go into the sea, are they really volcanic rocks, or were they made of something else billions and billions of years earlier? Who knows? Perhaps we'll only find that out when you and I meet our Maker ourselves, to find the ultimate answer, I guess. If we find the ultimate answer, and if we do not dissolve into nothingness. So that was the Giant's Causeway. Amazing place to see. It certainly opens the eyes. Beautiful area anyway to see. Moving on to there, we went on to my most favourite place. Place would be the wrong thing to say, probably the most famous or favourite church, St Columba's Church in Derry. Now some people will know it as Londonderry. I've always thought of it as Derry for a multitude of reasons, because going back to the times of the Troubles, you know, when the place was named, it was renamed Londonderry. The English had no right to do that. You know, there's an invasion of land, and this has been going on for centuries. This isn't just a new thing that's happened. There's an invasion of land, and then they rename the roads, rename the streets, rename the places, by making it all very English, in a sense. And then whacking a great point of land across and marking up and saying, right, this is Northern Ireland. Well, that shouldn't have happened in the first place. The island belongs to Irish people, as it should. Or, rephrase that, Ireland is for the Irish people, because let us not forget that no man shall own the land. So it should be for the Irish people. And if English people want to come across, fine, that's acceptable, isn't it? Provided they respect the beliefs, the cultures, the ways of life of the Irish people, and if they like that and they want to visit, fine. But no one has a right to invade another country and take over the country and start renaming its places. Because then we're no better than the Romans. Because isn't that what the Romans did? They took over lands and renamed places and taught different things and brought new religion across and changed everything and raped, pillaged and murdered. Yeah, so it makes us no different really. So have we really evolved as a species from that day of the Roman to today? And the answer really is no. We haven't, have we? We haven't learnt a single thing. Not one thing. We haven't learnt anything. Because if we had, we'd have more respect for each other, we'd have more calm with each other, and we certainly wouldn't be going around killing each other. So we haven't learnt a thing. So no wonder God left. He might be able to hear you through his angels, he might be able to hear you through whatever religion or denomination you follow. He might be able to understand through what is known as the Watchers. But he's not here on earth. We know that. He's in what people class as heaven. In other words, he's beyond the firmament. Beyond the firmament, beyond the skies, as it were. In a pool of logic somewhere. Or e-logic, who knows? Again, we'll know that one when we get there. So, with St Columba's Church in Derry, a beautiful church. It's so amazingly old inside. It's so beautifully kept. And I think it's got to be one of Ireland's best treasures. And it really should be marked as one of Ireland's best treasures. It's an amazing place to go in and feel. I say on the previous film when I talked about it, it made me well up with tears inside. It was very emotional for me to go in there after all these years, and I found it absolutely amazing. So leaving St Columbus's church, we went on to the next day, now into Friday, and we went to St Andrew's church in Dublin. And again, that ties in with Albert Fordham and John Fordham, grandfather and great-grandfather. And so it was nice to see where they were, and the Baptist records. That again, I've got one good link lead of documents from the Priory site in Dublin, the Public Records Office in Dublin. Sorry, in Belfast. Is that right? So yeah, so there's lots of different things. So we went on to Christ Church Cathedral in Dublin, and that was pretty good. And that had a direct connection to my family line. It was interesting. It was founded in 1030, we know that. And like most churches, I think that's one thing to remember, is like most churches, they're built on sacred land that was already there before the church. So that's something to really remember, because sometimes people go into these churches and they think, oh, how wonderfully beautiful they are. And yes, they are. You can almost be in awe of the beauty and the shininess that's inside. But let us not forget, it's actually the ground that you are standing upon that's important, not always the building or the structure, which does come through in Scripture, you know, that you don't need a big building to find something. You might find it in the most weirdest of places, but there are certain points where they are mostly heightened in levels of geomagnetics, of levels of energy, be that kinetic energy or whichever you want to refer it to as, and they always are where churches are built, so, or places of worship, should I say, because there has to be a reason why they built it there and not down the road. So there's always a great lot of thought that went into the actual building of the churches. From there we went on to St Patrick's Cathedral, which is very nice, again founded in 1191. From there we went on to the St Nicholas Parish Church, which Janice has lots of photographs about, which is lovely. Now that's in Dundalk, and Dundalk's a really interesting place if you ever get to go there, Dundalk. And that is where they've got some lovely little antique shops, some traditional shops, but it's pretty alive at the moment. It's got a lot of regeneration going on, which is brilliant. And then after that, we've been to see a lot of churches. We were very privileged and humbled to visit Belfast Synagogue. Now a lot of people go, oh my God, you went to a synagogue. But I think in order to understand any religion, you need to see all religions. You need to experience all religions to then make your own choice about what you feel is right and what you feel is wrong. And the synagogue today, this morning, was a very good service with some very good people that were very friendly people as well. So there's no reason for another religion to attack those people. There's no real reason for another religion to despise those people. There's still people that live on your street, in a house near you. They shop in the same supermarkets that you shop in. They go to the same hairdressers that you may go to. These are people that live in the community. So there's no reason to be attacking anyone just because of their religion, because of their faith or their belief, because that's wrong. We shouldn't do that. And surely the Holy Scripture should tell you the same. There are some scriptures that say the non-believer should be punished. Well, that's not the right way to go around having an understanding of religions. As I said prior, the only way of getting together and getting that peace is to have representatives from each religion coming together as a multi-faith group. That is the only way to start to make things change. And it hasn't happened in 2,000 years, guys, so it probably won't happen, because it's a long time's gone and we haven't learnt anything, as I said. So there we are. But we were at Belfast Synagogue, and that was absolutely lovely. From there, we went on to Bangor Island, not Bangor in Wales. And it's interesting to know that when we were there, it's a lovely, lovely place. And it makes you realise how close you are to the Scottish borders in Bangor. And it hopefully anyone who goes there will have the same revelations I did, that it shows that people aren't that different, because it's only an ocean's throw away, a sea away, and you're on the land of Scotland. It's that close, one of the closest points between the two countries, and they're both Celtic countries, so brilliant, absolutely brilliant. From there we went on to Warren Point, and that's a particular favourite one of mine. I do enjoy Warren Point. I think it's a lovely place. It's got a lovely quayside, great eateries, great restaurants. It's got a lot of energy there. Sadly, we didn't have as much time as I would have liked at Warren Point, because we're having to leave early tomorrow because the afternoon ferries are cancelled. So that was a little bit disappointing, but you know, that's the way life is sometimes. So you have to go with the flow. And so we've been to Warren Point, had a little look there. Again, friendly people, nice clean place. Didn't look like there was any crime or troubles, and the roads were fairly good. And I think that's one thing to say about the whole of Ireland, really, is that north and south, I hate to use them in separate sections, because in my mind it's a united island and should remain so. It should go back to the way it was, you know. We shouldn't have all this ridiculous debates about hard, soft and no borders. It shouldn't even come into a debate. Ireland is Ireland, end of. Yeah, it doesn't need to be a north and a south. It needs to be Ireland, full stop. That's the only way, again, to put certain things to bed. Ireland for the Irish people and other people who wish to come and see, or stay, or live, and work. So, all in all, the whole trip has been amazing. We've seen a lot of sights in a lot of days. We've seen many religious points. We've experienced 3 types of religious services, from the Protestant, from the Catholic, and from a Judaic point of view. So that allows us to see how communities work, and communities do work if you let them.